I'm Counselor Curt. Counselor Curt. ASMR. For today's video, at the request of one of my subscribers, I wanted to do a video specific to a mental health disorder. Today, we're going to talk about your anxiety. Specifically, I'd like to talk about Generalized Anxiety Disorder. In short, Generalized Anxiety Disorder is a mental health disorder where basically you feel anxious all the time for a really long time. Okay? We'll get a little bit more specific than that. Let me first say, though, that if this fits you, then having a disorder doesn't mean that you're abnormal in some way. Almost everyone could qualify for some kind of mental health disorder. A lot of people struggle with anxiety. Just ask your friends. Lots of people struggle with anxiety. So please don't think that this puts you in some category or puts a label on you unnecessarily. It's just calling it what it is so that we can address it, right? All right. So to help us further, more specifically define generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm also going to talk about how we can typically help your anxiety as well. But I've got my trusty DSM. This is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, 5th edition. And the DSM is also known as like the Bible of mental health. So anytime that I need to figure out like what I'm dealing with a client to define what diagnosis to give them, this is where I turn. This is where it's all written down. So I have Generalized Anxiety Disorder bookmarked. So we'll read through some of this together. There are some boring parts I'll skip over. So Generalized Anxiety Disorder. A. It's excessive anxiety and worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months. So, by definition, it's been going on for a while. A lot of times I hear clients say that it's been going on for years or as long as they can remember. They've been anxious for more days than not. That's the DSM's way of saying most all the time. And it occurs about a number of events and activities, such as work or school performance. B. The individual finds it difficult to control the worry. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. Hard to control. C. Anxiety and worry are associated with 3 or more of the following 6 symptoms. Okay? So let's name those 6 symptoms. So if you have 3 of these, and you've been feeling them for more days than not for 6 months. Okay? Restless, number 1. Restless or feeling keyed up or on edge. Okay? 2. Being easily fatigued. Easily fatigued. 3. Difficulty concentrating or mind going blank. Okay, so having a hard time focusing on things, concentrating. 4. Irritability. 5. Muscle tension. So a lot of times, you tense muscles up, you hold your stress and anxiety somewhere. Okay. 6, sleep disturbance. So, poor sleep. Either difficulty falling or staying asleep, being restless, or unsatisfying sleep. Okay. And basically, the last one is D, is anxiety, worry for physical symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. Basically saying it interferes with your life in some way. Significant distress. And then the last two, E and F, just say that it's not something else. It's not a substance that's making you anxious, and it's not some other disorder like OCD or panic attacks. Okay. Sometimes you can have generalized anxiety disorder and have some panic attacks that go along with it. Right? That happens pretty often. Okay. We'll go ahead and say goodbye to our DSM, and we're just going to talk about it for a little bit. Get some nice book sounds in there first. Okay. All right, so what did we learn? Generalized anxiety disorder is basically a disorder where you feel anxious for a long period of time, more days than not. At least 6 months is what it says. So if you're one of those people that's just been pretty anxious, that's your MO for a long time, many years, you may have generalized anxiety disorder. Now remember, it doesn't mean you have like a thing, like a virus or something. A disorder just means it's a way of qualifying something. Okay? So, what do we do about generalized anxiety disorder? What do we do with our anxiety? Wow. I have, when I help clients with their anxiety, I have basically a two-pronged approach, okay? And there are some other nuanced things that you can do as well. The two-pronged approach that I have are relaxation on a regular basis, relaxation and self-care. And the other prong is exposure therapy with cognitive behavioral therapy. All right, so let me talk about those. I'll go back to relaxation in a minute. Anxiety tends to perpetuate itself when we avoid the anxiety-causing stimulus. So, for example, if you are anxious about driving somewhere, as long as you avoid driving to that place, the anxiety will stay there. Okay? Let's name part of what anxiety is. A lot of anxiety, fear even, happens in our amygdala. It comes from the amygdala. It's a part of our brain right towards the center, close to the spinal cord, that's responsible for like our fight or flight response. And our amygdala, for very anxious people with generalized anxiety disorder, the amygdala is just firing off more than it should. It's trying to help you, because a little bit of anxiety is good. If we had no anxiety, we wouldn't get up in the morning or go to work. We wouldn't worry about a thing, right? A little anxiety is good. It gets us to do things. However, and the amygdala is a good thing. It helps us to know when to be cautious about things in life. But sometimes it overworks itself, and it causes us to be anxious about stuff that we don't need to be anxious about. So that's part of where it comes from. So think brain functioning, right? When we avoid something that we're anxious about, it reinforces the idea and strengthens those neuroconnections that tell us that we should avoid it, that we should be anxious about it. So when we're anxious, we avoid something and we become more anxious about it. Exposure therapy says that when we purposely do something that makes us anxious, I know that's hard to do, but when we purposely do it, we overcome that anxiety or fear, and we don't get as anxious about it anymore, right? So, for example, if you're anxious about driving somewhere, then be safe, but drive there on purpose again and again and again. Now, with all of this, I definitely recommend finding a therapist if you don't have one, and asking them to walk you through this process. This is a lot to handle on your own, so it always helps to find a therapist that you can learn to trust with your stuff and to help you through working through your own anxiety. Okay? So exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy has a lot to do with, one is recognizing our self-talk, right? So what do we tell ourselves about the road trip that we're anxious to go on? If we tell ourselves it's going to be the worst, something bad's going to happen, I'm just going to be so stressed out, it's going to be awful, then yeah, it probably will be, right? So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, helps us to reframe a lot of those thoughts that we have. It helps us to, I like to say, it helps us to find what the truth is. Neither extreme, not extreme negative, not extreme positive, but the middle ground is usually where the truth is. And so if we can instead maybe say, I'm not looking forward to this trip, but maybe it'll be okay. Maybe I'll be fine. Then that automatically leads to feeling less anxious about it. So it's our self-talk, but then the experience of exposure, exposing yourself to what makes you feel anxious. Okay? All right. There's a lot more to that. Again, write comments below, ask questions about this stuff. I'd love to answer them, whatever your questions are. But more than that, find a therapist in your area or online these days, right? That can help you go through this stuff. Okay. Let's get back to the relaxation part. So, relaxation, we have to be careful about this, because by relaxation, I don't mean trying to relax your way through the anxiety, because sometimes that can be, it's a different way of avoiding the thing that makes you anxious, right? So in the moment, you can practice relaxation, but only as a way to get through the thing that you're fearing or that you're anxious about, okay? So relaxation, self-soothing, those are great. You can do that in the moment, but don't use it to avoid experiencing the thing that makes you anxious, or even experiencing your anxiety. You need to experience it. Mindfully go through it. Going through it is the only way to get better, okay? The relaxation I mean, more so, is just ongoing relaxation. Training yourself to be a slow, relaxed person. By slow, I mean slow down your mind, your anxious thoughts. Be mindful about the moment. Practicing mindfulness is a great way to help your anxiety. Okay? Download, Headspace or Calm. Not a sponsor, unfortunately, but download those and practice some mindfulness with those. Relaxation. So build in relaxation on a regular basis. Take a bubble bath. It sounds kind of crazy, right? What? I'm an adult. I don't take bubble baths anymore. You should. You really should. Take a bubble bath every now and then. And just unwind. Light some candles. Play some soft, slow music that helps you relax. Classical, jazz, something smooth, something that's going to help you unwind. Bob Marley, for goodness sake. Put on some Bob Marley and just relax, okay? Build things into your day-to-day habits that help you relax. Take little mini vacations when you're working. Close your office door if you have an office, or find a quiet spot and just close your eyes and just breathe, relax. Practicing deep breathing helps. ASMR, right? ASMR, that's one of the things ASMR helps with the most, is anxiety. By watching these videos, feeling the tingles and relaxing, you're learning to slow down, you're learning to care for yourself and to just be a more relaxed person, okay? You still have to go through the anxiety at times, right? Exposure therapy is very important, but just relax on a day-to-day basis. Okay, you should mention, if you want to relax even further in a very intentional way, with ASMR, but maybe videos just aren't enough for you, I do currently offer ASMR sessions. These are not counseling sessions necessarily, but they're ASMR sessions, and you can live anywhere in the world, and we can do these together online. If you happen to live in Virginia or anywhere close to Blacksburg, Virginia, we can do them in person, but if not, we can do them online. The people that have had these sessions have sworn by them, have loved them. I'll schedule sessions with people in the middle of their workday, and they just love them. It really helps people to relax, to let go. These sessions are very personalized to you, and think of them as online ASMR spa sessions, okay? Again, it's not counseling, right, if we do these ASMR sessions, but it's intensely personalized ASMR to help you relax. If you want to find out more for different rates and everything, times, and just sort of ask questions about it, feel free to shoot me an email. My email is in the description below. I'd love to hear from you. So, all right. I hope that gives you a better idea about what generalized anxiety disorder is and how we can help it, how it's treated. Please find a therapist close to you, but feel free to comment or reach out to me. You can shoot me an email if you have questions or want to talk about doing ASMR sessions to help you with your anxiety. I'd love to hear from everyone. Okay. I'll go ahead and say good night for now. Good night.